After a lifetime of tragedy, Marie-Thérèse was finally laid to rest in 1851. But over 160 years later, scientists unearthed a mysterious body, and what they found threatened to unravel everything we thought we knew about the last daughter of Marie Antoinette. As the eldest daughter of King Louis XVI and Marie Antoinette, Marie-Thérèse was never supposed to become Queen of France. But after the Reign of Terror claimed every member of her family, Marie-Thérèse became their last hope, even if it was only for 20 minutes. Her resilience in the face of tragedy was as inspiring as it was heartbreaking. Marie was born into the powerhouse of Bourbon on December 19, 1778. As the eldest daughter of the ill-fated King Louis XVI of France and Marie Antoinette, she instantly became the Madame Royal. She would watch as each of her siblings entered the world, and would watch as they exited. But she almost didn't survive her first night. Right from the beginning, Marie-Thérèse's life would be one of overcoming the odds to survive. The court at Versailles was so excited for her birth that they overcrowded the delivery chamber, making it stuffy and stifling, and leaving her mother gasping for air while in delivery. Some quick thinking saved her life. As Marie Antoinette's condition worsened, panic amongst the court set in. Thankfully, in a stroke of genius, the courtiers broke the palace windows to bring in the fresh winter air. The quick thinking revived Antoinette and allowed her to bring forth the newborn royal. But the incident prompted Marie-Thérèse's father to restrict access to birthing chambers for royal births. So the new baby was alive, but not necessarily wanted. Once the chaos subsided, upon seeing her baby girl, Marie Antoinette whispered, "Poor little girl, you are not what was desired," referencing the court's disappointment at not having a male heir. However, Marie's mother relished the surprise. "A son would have been the property of the state," she said. "You shall be mine." So said, so done, for a while anyway. Marie-Thérèse might not have been the heir her parents were hoping for, but she was loved all the more for it. "You shall have my undivided care," Marie Antoinette told her infant daughter. Despite her mother's promises to give her undivided care, Marie-Thérèse was raised by a governess, a rotating cast of them. While Marie-Thérèse could barely get her mother to notice her, King Louis XVI was head over heels for his firstborn. He spoiled Marie with affection, gifts, and little indulgences. In the meantime, all of the disciplining fell to Marie Antoinette. She was determined to raise a true Queen of France. Marie-Thérèse was a member of the House of Bourbon, through her father, but her mother wanted to raise her in the stricter tradition of her birth house, the House of Habsburg-Lorraine, determined not to have Marie-Thérèse come out like her Bourbon aunts. Marie Antoinette insisted that her daughter dine with children of lower rank. She even encouraged Marie-Thérèse to practice extreme charity, even on the holidays. One account from Marie's childhood paints a life of thoughtfulness and charity. According to the story, when she received lavish gifts from courtiers one New Year's morning, her mother told her gently, "There is a crowd of unhappy people who have no bread to eat, no clothes to wear, no wood to make a fire. I have given them all my money. I have none left to buy you presents, so there will be none this year." Marie-Thérèse wasn't just the apple of her father's eye and the focus of her mother's ambition. She was a knockout too. Contemporaries described her as quite attractive with beautiful blue eyes. They noted that she carried on the tradition of her family, having inherited the good looks of her mother and maternal grandmother. Sadly, with the catastrophic events looming just around the corner, she would be the only member of her proud house to survive. Despite her family's attempts to show their charitable nature, discontent amongst the people of France was growing, and it would have dire consequences for Marie-Thérèse. However, even as the revolution gained momentum, the 10-year-old Madame Royal remained blissfully unaware of the brewing danger. Plus, she had personal tragedies to deal with. In 1787, Marie-Thérèse lost her little sister Sophie. The sudden and unexpected loss shook her to her core. Before the first shots of the revolution were even fired, Marie-Thérèse was learning that love and loss often came hand in hand, and it wouldn't be the last tragedy she suffered. Just 2 years after losing her sister, Marie-Thérèse had grown close to another one of her siblings, her brother, Louis Joseph. However, when he fell ill and succumbed to tuberculosis, she was devastated once again. In fact, she was too sad to notice the storm brewing just outside the palace walls. On July 14, 1789, a mere month after losing her brother, Marie Therese's world came crumbling down with the storming of the Bastille. Illness and accidents had taken the lives of her family already, but a mob would take her family's legacy. To preserve the Bourbon monarchy, Marie Therese's father sent her beloved governess and favorite uncle away. She wouldn't be far behind. Marie Therese's father had underestimated the mob's anger. So, when the rowdy rabble stormed the palace of Versailles in October of 1789, Marie Therese and her family only barely survived. Guards rushed the royal family into King Louis XVI's apartment as the crowd howled outside. Marie Therese clung to her family for dear life. Desperate to escape the chaos and finally understanding the danger they were in, Marie Therese and her family tried to flee Paris. However, locals recognized King Louis XVI and their daring escape ended just 50 kilometers from the fortified city. Forced to turn back to Paris, Marie Therese dreaded her likely fate. When members of the revolution captured the royal family, things got exponentially worse. Instead of the lace cuffs that she had grown up wearing, the guards threw Marie Therese and her family in irons and marched them back to Paris. Then the real horrors began. Fairy tales usually begin with princesses locked away in towers. In a cruel twist, however, Marie Therese believed that a tower was where her story would end. In August 1792, the revolution succeeded in dissolving the monarchy and imprisoned the royal in the infamous Temple Tower. Marie Therese, then just 13, watched as her family disappeared, one after the other. Months after their imprisonment, in January of 1793, Marie Therese learned the tragic news. Her father had lost his head on the guillotine. Not wanting to lose hope, a strong royalist faction declared her little brother, Louis Charles, the new King Louis XVII. But the boy king was only 8, and Marie Therese had no illusions. His crown was fake, and the danger was all too real. The worst was yet to come. By the summer of 1793, the situation for Marie Therese and her family had deteriorated even further. Just when she thought it couldn't get worse, guards stormed the royal chambers and seized her young brother, Louis Charles. Marie Therese could only watch helplessly as they tore the 8-year-old away, entrusted to a cruel cobbler who treated shoes with greater care than children. After losing her brother, Marie Therese lost the last person in her immediate family still around. On August 2nd, without much warning, the guards entered the royal chambers and ripped Marie Antoinette away from her daughter's side. With no one else left, Marie Therese clung to her Aunt Elizabeth until guards took her too. Within a year, Marie Therese had gone from being the pampered daughter of the most powerful family in Europe to its last living member. As the reign of terror swept through France and burned through courtiers and noblemen, Marie Therese alone remained as a sad and silent witness, watching from the Temple Tower. It's not like she had much else to do. Worse than the loneliness and relentless boredom was the horror of her situation. Though the walls of the Temple Tower were brick and stone, they might as well have been paper thin. Between reading and praying, Marie Therese had to listen helplessly to the cries of her little brother as he was subjected to all manners of unimaginable treatment at the hands of his captors. In midst of the reign of terror, Marie Therese got to meet with the one man behind it all, the one man responsible for her family's downfall, Robespierre. The leader of the revolution paid Marie Therese a visit at the Temple Tower. However, what they said, or indeed what happened, remains a mystery. But we know what he didn't tell her. Apart from sharing her father's grim fate, Robespierre didn't tell Marie Therese about the fate of the rest of her family. Cruelly, he left her with false hopes. All alone in her cell, with no one left to talk to, Marie Therese spoke to the walls, or at least carved her thoughts into them. Her heartbreaking message read, "Marie Therese Charlotte is the most unhappy person in the world." Despite the horrors inflicted upon her and her family members, Marie Therese clung to hope. Even more miraculously, however, she never lost her mother's spirit of charity. Even after everything her captors had done, the final words she carved into the stone wall of her cell were for forgiveness. "Oh my God, forgive those who have made my parents suffer." She might have been reciting a different prayer if she learned the truth. Just when she thought all hope was truly lost, on the eve of her 17th birthday, Marie-Thérèse was released. With the reign of terror reaching its end, her captors released her in exchange for captives of the royalists. No one had endured worse during the reign of terror, and no one's scars were quite so deep. With the Bourbon monarchy dethroned, even though Marie-Thérèse had gained her freedom, she had no home to which to return. Instead, she sought refuge in a tiny Baltic town in modern-day Latvia. The future of the dynasty rested on Marie-Thérèse. Though still mourning the loss of her own family, Marie-Thérèse understood her duty. With all of her brothers gone, her uncle, King Louis XVIII, had resumed the crown, but he had no heirs of his own. So, to preserve the Bourbon line, he arranged for her marriage to her cousin, Louis Antoine. It was not the match everyone hoped it would be. Even though he was the son of her father's younger brother, Charles X, Louis Antoine lacked Marie-Thérèse's more thorough upbringing. Timid and tongue-tied, he hardly inspired confidence in the future of the House of Bourbon, with even his own father objecting to the match. Still, on June 10, 1799, Marie-Thérèse performed her duties and wed her cousin in a quiet ceremony. But the match proved fruitless, as the couple's only child passed in infancy in 1813. After her wedding, Marie-Thérèse joined what was left of the House of Bourbon who had sought refuge in England. While she lived at Hartwell House, her father-in-law spent his time further north. With her extended family scattered across Europe, Marie-Thérèse could have lost all hope. But a change she knew was coming. In 1814, after almost 2 decades in exile, Marie-Thérèse's fate took a dramatic turn. When Napoleon fell, royalist factions within France restored the Bourbon monarchy and paved the way for Marie-Thérèse to return. However, when she walked the halls of Versailles again, without the sound of her siblings' laughter or the warmth of her parents' love, it didn't feel like home. Still, she would fight for what little she had left. When Napoleon made his surprise return from Elba in 1815, most of the Bourbon royalists fled in fear of the fabled general. But not Marie-Thérèse. She rallied loyal troops and tried to defend her uncle's reign. While the fighters refused to attack their fellow Frenchmen if Napoleon arrived, they pledged to keep her safe against all harm. She might not have needed their protection after all. When Napoleon heard that Marie-Thérèse was standing in his way, he sent orders for her detainment. Undeterred, however, Marie-Thérèse refused to budge or ever find herself clapped in irons again. She stood firm until a general convinced her that to stay would bring senseless destruction. Only then, to save the lives of her supporters, did she agree to leave. Napoleon's brave stand might not have stopped Napoleon's forward march, but it did give him pause. In fact, even though he had toppled her family's dynasty and forged one of his own from the ruins, he couldn't help but admire the last standing Bourbon from the main line. After Marie-Thérèse stood down to save her people's lives, Napoleon reportedly said, "She is the only man in her family." He wasn't wrong. In 1824, Louis XVIII passed on, and her father-in-law became King Charles X. That gave Marie-Thérèse the paradoxical accomplishment of being the only Dauphine of France, wife of the heir to the throne, who was also a daughter of a former king. It seemed she was destined to be queen one day. In July 1830, revolution rocked France once again, and the monarchy, on shaky footing, came crumbling down. Under pressure, and to save his life, Marie-Thérèse's father-in-law Charles X abdicated in favor of his son, Louis Antoine, making Marie-Thérèse Queen of France, but only for 20 minutes. Less than half an hour later, Louis Antoine abdicated in favor of his nephew, the Duke of Bordeaux. If you blinked, you would have missed her reign. Just days after, briefly becoming queen, Marie-Thérèse was on the run again. On August 16, 1830, she boarded a ship along with the rest of the extended Bourbon clan and set sail for exile in England. This time, she knew her crown was gone for good. Without a court to call their own, Marie-Therese and the remnants of the Bourbon family found refuge wherever they could. By 1833, her father-in-law Charles X had relocated to Prague. There, Marie-Therese settled into opulent apartments within Prague Castle. Eventually, the family moved again, this time to present-day Italy. All of that moving, however, began to take its toll. Even after everything she'd endured, Marie-Therese never turned her back on her family and her charitable spirit. In 1836, when her uncle and father-in-law Charles X became ill with cholera, she personally tended to his every need until his final moments. 8 years later, she lost her husband too. Then she faded into history. Widowed and weary, Marie-Therese moved into a quiet manor just outside Vienna, her mother's native land. There she finally found a measure of peace, spending her days reading, sewing, and praying. Her nephew soon joined her, but she wasn't long for this world. On October 19, 1851, 3 days after the anniversary of her mother's execution, Marie-Therese succumbed to pneumonia. She was buried beside her husband and father-in-law in a quiet monastery crypt in present-day Slovenia, far from her home in Paris. Her tombstone bore the only official title left to her, Queen Dowager of France. But was she really? As Marie-Therese had retreated from public life, her final years became something of a mystery. In 2013, German authorities exhumed the grave of a veiled woman, buried in 1837. They hoped to resolve a 200-year-old rumor that the woman was the real Marie-Therese. The mysterious woman, whose remains the German authorities excavated, had called herself Sophie Bada. Since entering the historical record, she had lived in near total isolation, always veiled and never speaking in public. The only man who interacted with her, Leonardus van der Valk, referred to her as Your Grace, and only spoke to her in French. Rumors had spread like wildfire about the true identities of Sophie and van der Valk. But, without any confirmation, the Germans began referring to the couple simply as the Dark Counts. Everyone's bet was that Sophie was in fact Marie-Therese. It wasn't as crazy as it sounded. The theory that Marie-Therese had actually taken refuge in Germany as Sophie Bada wasn't a crazy idea. According to the rumor, Marie-Therese had swapped places with her adoptive sister after suffering traumas at the hands of her captors in the Temple Tower. Some even claimed that she'd become pregnant by one of her captors, perhaps suggesting that van der Valk was her son. Only DNA would reveal the truth. When scientists tested the Dark Countess' remains, they found conclusive evidence that shocked many. Sophie Bada was not a match with the Bourbon bloodline. In other words, Sophie Bada was not Marie-Therese. In fact, no one could say who she was. So in the end, it seems that Marie-Therese was tragically the last of her line. Marie-Therese's life was defined not by privilege, but by perseverance. Born into one of the most powerful families in Europe, she witnessed firsthand how quickly fortunes can turn, and how brutally the world can strip away innocence. She survived revolution, imprisonment, the deaths of every close family member, and exile. At a time when kings and queens were falling to the blade, she endured, not because of military might or political savvy, but because of a quiet, unwavering strength. History remembers her less for her brief reign as queen, and more for her resilience in the face of unimaginable tragedy. She was, by all accounts, a woman who lived several lifetimes worth of sorrow, and still managed to carry herself with grace. Her final years, far removed from the courtly grandeur of Versailles, were spent in silence and reflection, proof that some wounds never fully heal, even for royalty. And yet, even in death, she inspired myth and fascination. The mystery of the Dark Countess shows just how compelling her story remains. People couldn't believe that such a tragic figure could simply fade away. But perhaps that's her final lesson. Real strength doesn't always roar. Sometimes it endures quietly. Thanks for watching History Exposé. If you love uncovering the best stories in history, hit like and subscribe to keep exploring with us. Don't forget to visit our main page, Factinate, for more incredible facts about everything.